How do I introduce myself? I think maybe you've probably seen or heard something about me or read something about me. But I'm a software engineer, the founder of newdev.io, an interactive learning platform and collaborative platform for developers. I've also worked at JetBrains in the past as a developer advocate, Andela, Data Science Nigeria. What else? I'm the author of Simplified JavaScript for Very Important Programmers. So if you want to be a very important programmer, then you're listening to the right person. So to start with JavaScript, oh, I also have a YouTube channel where I teach programming, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React, Node.js, and all the rest. So I mean, maybe after this class, I'm going to share that with you all. But right now, if you want to find anything about me or any of my social links, you go to newdev.io/Ebenezer, and that's going to show you everything about me and all my social links. So that's it for that one. And we're not going to take much time today. I'm just going to give you an introduction to JavaScript so you know what it's about. And then you can carry on your learning from there. So it'll be easy for you to, when you want to learn JavaScript, it's going to be easy for you to know what exactly you're learning. Maybe concepts will be easier to understand, or you know where to get the right resources and all of that. So first of all, about JavaScript, then I'm going to use my book. I'm going to share my screen and just use my book for the first introduction. And then maybe if I'm writing a bit of code, I'll take it to my console. So let me share my screen right now. And if you have any questions while I'm speaking, feel free to ask, and I'm going to see it. I'm going to check it out in the comment section. So let me share my screen right now. All right. Can you see my screen? How do I even know you can see my screen? Okay, I think I'm just, yeah, you can see my screen. That's cool. All right then. Now let's start with JavaScript. Let me try to make this full screen also. And how is that done here? I don't know if maybe that's not possible. Yeah. If you have any ideas, let me look, see if anyone has any ideas. No. If you have any ideas, you can unmute your mic and tell me. But I want to like close out this place, but it looks like that's not working. So let me just take it like this. What is JavaScript and how does it work? First of all, we know that JavaScript is a programming language. That's a foolish assumption I'm making, that if you've come to this class to learn about JavaScript, you know that JavaScript is a programming language. And what is JavaScript used for? You know, regardless of what I wrote here, without reading what I wrote here, let's talk about what JavaScript is used for, first of all, before you learn what JavaScript is actually, and what are some instances of where JavaScript is used. An example is this web page I'm currently on. This is a PDF of my book, but this is Chrome right now. Or we can use an example. Let me go to newdev.io right here on newdev. And I also go to Google, something you're familiar with, google.com. And then let me show you some examples of where JavaScript is used. And one example right now, where we click this button or this button, something happens, right? Normally, this could be links with HTML, CSS. I'm assuming you've learned HTML, CSS before coming to JavaScript. So HTML, you can link to stuff with CSS. But the way this page is designed, there's a lot of JavaScript that went into making things like this possible. Like when you just click on this page, it opens up immediately. You see that it opens up immediately. And if we come over to the get started here, and then the front end guide, and then we come here, right here where we have this, when you click this button. So let me zoom in right now. When you click this button, something happens. So I click this button, you see that something happens. So how is our site able to interact with us so that you click a button and then something happens? I click this button right now and see that a YouTube video is playing. How are all these things possible? We click a site. I click to copy this link. I click right now, and this link for the of the YouTube video is copied to my clipboard, and I can paste it here. All these things are made possible with JavaScript. And that was why JavaScript was introduced in the first place in 1995, when Brendan Eich created JavaScript. And that was to add, that was the initial purpose of JavaScript, to add interactivity to web pages. Because before JavaScript, it was just HTML and CSS. And you have your site, it's not interacting with you. Whatever I tell your site to do, that's exactly what it's going to do for everybody, regardless of the circumstance, the situation, location, whatever it is. Whatever I tell your site to do, that's what it's going to do for everyone. So we needed JavaScript to add interactivity to our site so that our site responds to us like it's living, like it understands our request, like it understands what's happening, what we're asking for. So that if I click this button right now and I'm not signed in, or I'm then taken to this sign up page, all of this stuff. So it's JavaScript that's making things like this possible, to add interactivity to our website. And that's why we have JavaScript in the first place. That was the initial purpose of JavaScript, to be able to add interactivity to the to our website. And but right now, though, that's for JavaScript's initial purpose. But right now, JavaScript has gone beyond just adding interactivity to websites, to doing stuff like data science, machine learning. You can use JavaScript for that. Game development, you can use JavaScript for that. What else? Mobile app development, you can use JavaScript for that. Name it. I think literally everything, or almost everything that has to do with programming, you can use JavaScript for that right now. But the initial purpose was to add interactivity to websites. And why it was even named JavaScript, because when it started, when JavaScript was created, it was named Mocha then later changed to LiveScript. But why it was named JavaScript was because back then, Java was a popular language. Java was the language that everyone was recognizing. No, this is a really good programming language. Everyone was trying to use Java, talking about Java. So the people behind JavaScript, I think Netscape back then, yeah, they decided to ride on that popularity of Java, and hey, our own language is now JavaScript. So that you feel like, oh, that's part of Java, or that has some kind of attachment with Java. That was why it was named JavaScript. But then it was later officially named to ECMAScript. So the official name for JavaScript is ECMAScript. JavaScript, the name JavaScript also is trademarked by Oracle, the owners of Java. So that's really a really funny situation. JavaScript is very different from Java. Like, they do totally different things. So Java is not the same as JavaScript. They are different. Their similarities is that Java is a programming language and JavaScript is also a programming language. And then you'll find like some of the common programming language paradigms or terms or whatever it is. The core programming language stuff, you always find it across all languages like Java, JavaScript, Python. All these languages have similarities because they are programming languages. But that aside, Java does a different thing from what JavaScript was intended to do, or does mostly. So, but the name similarities because of the popularity of Java back then. The official name for JavaScript is actually ECMAScript. And JavaScript is often used in conjunction with HTML and CSS to create interactive and dynamic websites. And one of its main features is its ability to manipulate and interact with web pages. So like it can be used to change the content and layout of a web page, respond to user input, so that when I type in, something can happen. I can sign in, hit the sign in button, do this, and then I'm signed into my account. And then my data is stored. It knows that, oh, this is Ebenezer done right here. I can click someone's profile right now, and then I can see like information about them. I can hit the follow button, and it's JavaScript that's helping me make all this possible. I hit the follow button, I'm able to follow Ayomide and see what he's up to, read his updates, all this JavaScript. And on the back end for me, they needed using Node.js on the back end, and that's to JavaScript. So that when I follow Ayomide right now and he creates a post, I get notified. That's JavaScript. I get an email, I get push notification. That's JavaScript. So all these things are what JavaScript enables us to do. Yeah, how does JavaScript work? When a JavaScript program is run, the computer reads the code and follows its instructions. In the case of web development, JavaScript is usually run in a web browser like Google Chrome or Mozilla Firefox. So that's for web development. But remember, I said JavaScript is now used across several fields besides web development, like server-side development. We're using Node.js for new dev. I'm sure you've heard of, or if you've not heard of Node.js, Node.js is basically JavaScript on the back end. Right now, what I'm showing you right now is JavaScript on the front end. But even for this website to be made possible, so that when I load up this page, something shows. It's JavaScript on the back end that's making that possible, so that I'm using JavaScript now to send information over to the front end, to send the data for this guy, and to see what he has to share. So it's JavaScript that's making that possible on the back end. And then the front end, this one you can see, the front end is this one you can see and interact with, now sees that and then shows you something. But the back end, you don't really see it, but the back end is what's transferring, helping, making it possible for the front end to work. Without the front end, we won't be able to access this person's data, this person's stories right now. He's posting updates. But without the back end, we won't even see this data. So the front end sends that request, gets it from the back end, and then shows it to you so that you can now see it. You like the post, you're sending the request to the back end, and then that's happening there. And the back end sends back data to the front end to be able to show you that, 188 people have seen this post. There are 2 comments here and all of that stuff. So that's how JavaScript is used across front end and back end. I remember I said you can use JavaScript for mobile applications, and all the other stuff like game, game development, machine learning, data science. You can use JavaScript for all of that right now. So that's something that's really cool about JavaScript. So I mentioned in the book, server-side programming, mobile app development, game development, data visualization, robotics, Internet of Things, machine learning. So you can use JavaScript across all of this stuff. So now that we know about JavaScript, the history, a bit of the history of JavaScript, in case anyone asks you, when was JavaScript first introduced? You can tell them 1995 by Brendan Eich. And then the initial version was written in 10 days. In 10 days, although that's not the main JavaScript you know of today, because a lot of development have gone into JavaScript since then. So it's not just the one of 10 days, but the initial JavaScript was written in 10 days. But after that, there's been so many other JavaScript written into JavaScript, improvements, modifications, features, whatever it is, deletions, and so on and so forth. So that's it for JavaScript. I'm going to just come and see if there are any questions. Okay, no. So if you have any question, you can write it in the chat there, and I'm going to answer. So now we know about that, how to write and run JavaScript code. So now, using the web browser, you can use the web browser to write and run JavaScript. So if you're watching this video right now, if you're part of this, you're watching the video, you're part of this conversation or this call with your laptop right now, you can just go to the console. So I can come to maybe anywhere, any page at all. You can do this from any page at all. You right click and then inspect. So right click, you click inspect, and then come over to your console. So this is your console right here. Right here, you can start writing and running JavaScript code. So that's how you can start testing out JavaScript. So I can say, so don't worry, I'm going to explain this to you. But this is an example of me testing out JavaScript code on the browser console. To look at that console.log hello world, this is me telling my browser to show hello world, this text hello world. And this is the response from the browser, hello world. In case you've heard of hello world before, it's just a popular statement or sentence that we use to welcome programming languages. So that's a console.log hello world. I'm going to explain that to you in a bit if we have the time. But that's one way we can run JavaScript code. You can also use, what's this called? Your text editor or IDE to write JavaScript code, but you still have to run it on the browser though. But apart from writing it on the console, on this console, you can come over to VS Code. Let me see. Let me try to open my VS Code. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and then open my VS Code to make sure I don't have anything I don't want to show there. And then open a new file right there on VS Code. So this is, okay, you can't see my screen right now. So I'm just going to open VS Code and let me create a new file. And then, or is anyone saying anything? Let me hear you. If you have anything to say, any question or comment. Yeah, so I'm going to open a new file right here and just a second. All right. So what I'm going to do right now is share my screen again. So that I'll show you how I'm doing this. This is another way we can run JavaScript code. Remember, we've not started learning JavaScript. We're just learning how to run JavaScript code. So like, don't feel left out yet. If you don't understand anything, we've not started learning the JavaScript code itself. So let me share my screen again. And now I'm looking for the browser window for that. Yeah, I know you can't see my screen. I can see the comments right now. So I want to share my screen again. So I'm sharing my screen again right now. And then to show you how we can write and run JavaScript code. So this is my file explorer. If you're using Windows, file explorer, I think that's the same thing it's called on Mac. Yeah, Finder on Mac. But this is my file explorer. I have a new folder, and what I'm going to do right now. Okay, let me open this in my terminal. And I think in Windows you can create a new file. Just I didn't say that here. I've done that. I think you can create a new file in Windows. So I make sure I take account of every operating system people are using. If you right click, there should be create a new text file or something like that, and then in Windows. But for this one, you can also open, if you have a code editor like Visual Studio Code, or code editors are applications where we run JavaScript. Applications where we run JavaScript. Those are where we write code rather. Sorry about that. Applications where we write code. Those are called, and I'll show you an example right now. So CODE code. But you've learned HTML and CSS. Okay. I always try to assume, I make sure that I don't teach you anything and assume that you know when you don't actually know it. So, but you've learned HTML and CSS. So I'm going to make that assumption that you know code editors. And okay. So this is not the terminal I opened. Okay, this one now. I can open this one now. All right then. So you know what code editors are. So this is Visual Studio Code. And what I'm going to do right now is create a new file and then name it hello.js. So JavaScript files, if you're creating a JavaScript file, you have to end it with a .js extension. That's how your computer is going to know that it's a JavaScript file. .js. That's how the browser is going to know it's a JavaScript file. .js for JavaScript. So hello.js right now, and the same thing I did on the browser. Console.log JavaScript or hello world, same thing. After this, then that'll be later on, but this is one way to write JavaScript in your code editor. And then after this, you have just your hello.js file. Then you can run it. Can you run the .js file directly on the browser? What you can run is .html file in your browser. If you have the index, you know about, you've learned HTML, so you know index.html file, and then you import .js file. So we'll talk about that later. But for now, I just wanted to show you how possible this is with your code editor. But for now, let's go back to this guy right here, the browser console. We have console.log hello world. And right now with JavaScript console.log hello world, how do I start? Let me start with data types. But right now, what you need to know about console.log hello world is that, okay, this is one way that we tell a browser or a JavaScript console rather to log something to the console. So this right here is the console. I want to log something. If I want to log, my name is Ebenezer done. I have console.log again, this parenthesis, and my name is Ebenezer done right here. So this is me logging. My name is Ebenezer done to the console. But now to explain, I wanted to explain console.log, but to explain console.log, you have to understand objects, you have to understand functions, but we can't get to all those places right now. What I'm going to start from, that's going to be easy for you to understand, is data types. So JavaScript has data types, and data types are a way we represent data in programming languages and for the interpreters or the console to understand. First of all, JavaScript is I think it's okay. Let me not go there for now. There's no way we can cover everything in this short amount of time. But let's go back to JavaScript data types, syntax and data types. Now, JavaScript syntax and data types are fundamental concepts that you should understand as you learn JavaScript. The syntax of a programming language includes its rules for writing and structuring code, while data types represent the classification of values that you can store and manipulate in your code. When you hear people talking about syntax, sometimes I say, when I'm talking, explaining the difference between programming language, I'll say the underlying functionality is the same. The underlying fundamentals are the same. What's different is the syntax. Like JavaScript has its own syntax. Python is another programming language. Python has its own syntax. Java, another programming language, has its own syntax. C++, they all have their syntax. So what's that syntax? The syntax of a programming language its rules for writing and structuring code. So there's a way you write JavaScript code, and then if you take that code and say, oh, you want this to be Java, you have to rewrite it because Java is not going to understand that. So that's what syntax is. Syntax is, oh, these are the rules for writing and structuring code in this particular language. These are the rules for writing and structuring code in this other language. And while data types represent the classification of values that you can store and manipulate in your code. So an example of a data type. Now, if we come back to the console right here, where I did console.log hello world. Now, there's a data type for this hello world. What's going to be the difference between hello world and maybe 45? So you can see that right here, this one is like text. You know, this is text. Hello world is text, and you know 45 to be a number. So in JavaScript, something like this, text like this is called a string, string. That's the data type one as a string. Is there a chat? Let me see if I can get it. Let me see. Okay, so string is yeah, that's the data type for this hello world you can see right here, and then 45 is a number. So that now this is JavaScript code. With JavaScript we can do stuff like mathematical calculation. So I can do 4 times is used. We use the asterisk to represent times in JavaScript. So you can try this out in your browser console. 4 times 5 right now. You see that the answer is 20. So 4 times 5, you hit enter, you see the answer. This is JavaScript that I'm using to do this multiplication. So how does the browser recognize different things so that I cannot just come and say 4 times hello world right here? See that returns an error message because this is a number and then this, we don't even know what this is. So you want to write this string like this hello world. First of all, you have to say hello and world. You have to wrap it in what is this called? Quotation mark. So this is single quotes right here. So this is the string for hello world. HELLO and WORLD. And that is how your browser knows that this is a string because you wrap it in quotes. So with JavaScript, we use single quotes. That's why that's the best practices for JavaScript. You can use double quotes for your JavaScript string when you wrap it in a string, whatever text. Even if we now come and say 45 right here, right? What we've done is instead of 45 as a number, we're saying, okay, this 45 is a string. So JavaScript is going to recognize this data type as a string. So that if we now come and do something like this, 45, or let me use 5 right here as a string, plus 5 right here as a string, so that we have 55 as a string, not 55 as a number. So because JavaScript is seeing this as a string and seeing this as a string, and what it does is it concatenates both of them. So let me clear this again so that you can see what we're doing. So this is 5 right here as a string. And I was trying to explain why we do, I'm going to zoom in again, just in case it's difficult for you to see. I was trying to explain that this works in JavaScript, hello world. Using double quotes works to represent string, but the best practice, the commonly accepted way to write strings in JavaScript is using single quotes. If you use double quotes, nothing is going to happen. Just that it's just good to keep things consistent, just be consistent across your code base. So usually, if you go to a language like Python, everyone uses double quotes. When you come to JavaScript, you find most people using single quotes for strings like this. So hello world. So I was trying to explain that this 55 as a number right now is different from 55 as a string. So if we say 5 as a number plus 5, what do we have? We have 10. But if we say 5 as a string plus 5 as a string, what do we have? We have 55. So that's JavaScript saying this 5 as a string, this 5 as a string, and then it concatenates them. So concatenation means joining 2 strings together. So that is why we can have something like this, hello as a string, and then we have plus hello as a string. We have hello, or we have hello as a string plus world as a string. We have hello world. And then if we want to add space, we can say hello as a string plus space right here. plus word. Now we have hello world. So that's why data types are important. So that you'll not be expecting 10 and then see 55. You need to know exactly what data type your value is to be able to work with JavaScript. So that's important for that. There's a syntax. Maybe I should just let me walk you through the syntax, the common basic rules for writing and structuring JavaScript code. JavaScript is case sensitive. So this is different from this in JavaScript. Hello right here. Case means hello is different from okay. So case is now. We have title case, we have lower case. That means that this H, capital H, JavaScript recognizes it as something different from this small letter H in JavaScript. So I'm trying to avoid explaining with like variables now because we've not learned variables. And that's why I try to avoid explaining with things that you've not learned, so you don't get confused. But I don't think we'll be able to cover variables today, but you learn that as you progress in JavaScript. Now, but what you should understand is that JavaScript sees the small letter H as different from capital letter H because JavaScript is case sensitive. So if you say, oh, you're naming something small letter H, and then you want to now reference it later and use capital letter H, JavaScript is going to be like, it's going to tell you, I don't know what that is. You have to use exactly Hello. If you're naming something Hello, it has to be Hello anywhere you want to reference it. And if it's capital Hello, it has to be capital Hello. And this is also different from this. You can have H, capital E, and then LLO. All these are different. So that's what it means by JavaScript is case sensitive. Is it lowercase? Is it uppercase? And all of that. And use spaces, tabs, and new lines to make your code readable, but make sure to stay consistent. So that's going to be later on when you're writing JavaScript code. You can just write the semicolon at the end of each statement. A statement is any line of code that instructs the computer to perform, to perform a specific task. Yeah, so JavaScript, notice that when I'm writing my JavaScript code, I just write this console.log, for example. Now, if at least if you learn anything today, you know that, oh, you have to use console.log to log something to the console. Although you will explain and or you will learn about console.log later on, and that's to really understand what's going on behind the scene here. You have to understand console as an object, and then .log right here as a property of this object as a function. So, but let me not confuse you with that. But just know that here console.log something, and that thing is going to be outputted to the console. So console.log hello world right here. Now, normally, or I think this was initially required with JavaScript. Yeah, you have to end every statement. And if you go to other languages like Java, you have to terminate every statement with a semicolon. So if you don't terminate the statement with a semicolon, the interpreter is not going to understand what you're doing, what you're saying. So you have to terminate the statement with a semicolon. But with JavaScript, you can choose to terminate it with a semicolon, and you can choose not to. If you don't terminate it with the semicolon, it's still going to recognize where your statement ends. So in my code, remember, I like to keep things consistent, and that's what's important. That's something you should learn how to do. Keep things consistent. In my code, I don't use semicolons. And since I don't use semicolons, I don't use it anywhere. Unless it's absolutely necessary. There are like very few cases where it's just better to add that semicolon. But across my code base, I don't use semicolons. And there are some people that like semicolons, and that's fine also. If you decide to use semicolons, you make sure that you're consistent with that. Use it across your code base. So that's for that's the syntax of using semicolons to end each statement in your JavaScript code. Now let's see what else we have here. So for data types, we have numbers, we have strings. We learned about numbers and strings. We have booleans also. Boolean, true or false. If you did like secondary school math, you would have learned booleans, true, false, all this stuff. I think the true has to be this and with small letter. Remember, JavaScript is case sensitive. You said that I didn't recognize T, capital letter T, R-U-E. So that would be small letter true, and then we have false. So those are booleans. Something can be true, something can be false. Like we can decide to say, so this is another thing, another way we can find out whether this is a way you can find out whether something is a number in JavaScript. It's none. It's none. ISNAN. NAN stands for not in number. So if I say is none, and then the parenthesis again, and then what I want to check, hello right here. hello, is non-hello. What we have is true. That means it's not a number. So it's not a number, hello. This hello string, is it a number or not? So it's either true or false. It's not a number, hello. That sounds like terrible grammar, but it's nan, N-A-N for nan, is not a number. You learn all these things later, but it's nan, hello, true. So this is the boolean is returning. If I now say it's nan 5, so 5 is a number, so this is going to say oh, it's nan is not defined. What am I? What's the yeah? So this is it again. That's what this case is. This is capital N-A-N. So when you get some errors like this, make sure that you look at the casing, and make sure that all the letters are the exact cases they're supposed to be. So is N, capital N, small letter A, and then capital N again for this one. And then if I say it's nan 5, see that. So 5 is a number. So if we are saying 5 is not a number, we're going to get this boolean false. So that's for boolean. Yeah, we'll be wrapping up soon. We'll be wrapping up. And then there are also comments in JavaScript. With comments in JavaScript, we can write stuff. So, and this is general for any programming language. Programming languages have these data types. Like you're going to see numbers, you're going to see booleans. Numbers, like in the language of Java, numbers have like different other classes. Okay, I'm not going to bore you with that, but JavaScript is straightforward. If something is a number, okay, JavaScript is going to say, yeah, it's whatever type of number it is, but JavaScript knows that, yeah, just tell me that is a number, that is a number. I'm going to handle every other thing later on. And JavaScript is a dynamic language also. Unlike Java or C++ or C#, JavaScript is a dynamic language, which means that when we do some things like write strings or write numbers or write booleans or whatever it is, when we just write them, if I just write true, JavaScript knows that true is a boolean. If I write Ebenezer right here, JavaScript knows that Ebenezer is a string. If I write 50, JavaScript knows that 50 is a number. We don't need to start specifying. But in some other languages that are statically typed languages, if you write 50, you have to specify that this 50 is a number for it to work. If you don't specify 50 is a number, the compiler or the interpreter is going to be looking at you like, what's going on here? What are you trying to do? You have to tell me what exactly you're doing. But with JavaScript is going to help you. It's dynamic. That means that, oh, just give me what you want and I'll interpret it for you. I'll tell you. I'll understand that this is either a number, this is either a string. And then if you've heard of TypeScript before, if you've not heard of TypeScript, you definitely hear of TypeScript very soon. And with TypeScript is like a superset of JavaScript. You know, something that's built on top of JavaScript so that we can have that. You can start specifying things. And why some people prefer languages that they can specify data types, whether this data type is a number or whether it's a string or whether it's this or that, is just so that they can have some kind of safety and avoid certain errors. But then it also makes the code more complex than it would be with plain JavaScript. So it depends. Everything has its trade-off. Yeah, so JavaScript right now is easier to learn, relatively easier to learn than other languages that are statically typed. And that's because at the beginning, you don't have to worry yourself about declaring every type of everything you're writing. JavaScript is just going to know what type it is. So comments, you're going to hear of comments. And remember, what the point I wanted to make is that these things are usually the fundamentals across different programming languages are usually the same. Like if you start learning Java tomorrow, you hear of data types. If you start learning Python tomorrow, you hear of data types. Start learning C++, Rust, Golang, whatever it is, you hear of data types. You're going to hear of you're going to see similar functions like this one, like is nan in JavaScript, an inbuilt function that helps us check whether something is not a number. You're going to see something similar. It might not be the same thing, it won't be the same name, but it's just going to be something similar. I mentioned function, but you've not learned function. But there's something called function, and you see that across all the languages. You're going to see strings, you're going to see all this. It's just going to be the same. And comments, the comments that I want to explain right now, you're going to see comments right here. So notice now that with comment, if I write hello, unlike when I just write this hello word right here, when I write hello world, you see that the interpreter, our browser console gives me something back. Oh, hello world, and it gives me hello world back. But if I write if I have this double slash and then write something, nothing is happening. See, nothing is happening. I'm not getting anything back. And that's because this is a comment. And with comments, the compiler or the interpreter skips whatever it is you write in the comments. So different programming languages, you've likely learned comments in HTML and CSS. So I think you might understand that. Different programming languages have different ways or different syntax for writing their comment. With JavaScript is double slash and then do stuff here. Maybe it's your comments are usually a way to explain what's happening in your code for other humans. So the interpreter, the compiler has nothing to do with it. So that's for comments, and we've learned about booleans. There are single line comments, multi-line comments, but we're rounding off right now. Yeah, and then in the book I went on to start talking about basic conditional statements, if else, but we're not going to be able to do all of that right now. It's going to require time, and that's it for the introduction to JavaScript. Now with JavaScript, after writing, like you can start learning JavaScript right from your console, but there are also other platforms where you can write JavaScript code. I think there is what's the name of this platform? Yeah, I'm just going to use Google right now. Platforms for writing, because I've forgotten most of them because I don't use it regularly. But there is, when I see it, I'll know. There is online platforms. And we have this right here. So maybe you can do this Google search like I'm doing right now and find out online platforms where you can just go, you write JavaScript code and you run it. I don't know why I've forgotten this one. It's not even live code, I know. There are like two that I used a lot, but I've not used them in a long while. So, but that's another one. Maybe when I remember, if anybody knows any of them, you can just put it in the comments in the chats right now. And then you just go to this site and you write your code. So I can see some other examples I've not seen before. So these ones are probably going to work. You go to this site, you write your code, and then you just run your JavaScript code and you see it there. So these are like those platforms. When I remember it, or maybe I mentioned it in the book. Let me see if I mentioned it in the book. If I didn't, when I remember it, I'm gonna tell you. So yeah, So I mentioned it. So include CodePen, there's GSFido, GSBin. So you just go to CodePen, you write your code. So that's another way to write and test JavaScript code. That's it. That's it for the introduction to JavaScript. And when learning a language like JavaScript, don't skip the fundamentals. So what you want to learn, and another way to, you must have a roadmap when you want to learn JavaScript. It's very important to have a roadmap. You can come to my book, right? For those that are buying my book, you're like, if you get my book, you're fine. You don't have anything to worry about. If you're not getting my book also, you can go over to the page for my book, Linkpub. You go to linkpub.com/VIP JavaScript right now. And these are, So I'm just explaining why it's important to have a roadmap when learning a language like JavaScript. You can come to the table of contents here, and then you can use this to start learning JavaScript. So if you get my book, it's going to be easier, much easier for you. But if you're not getting my book, like that's still fine. You can still learn JavaScript. And come to the table of contents, you're seeing the different. This is like a step-by-step guide to learn JavaScript. This is what you learn first, learn second, learn third, and you keep going one after the other. So when it comes to something like what is JavaScript and how does JavaScript work, you can go over to Free Code Camp, find a free resource on that, or Mozilla. There's the Mozilla documentation. I use Mozilla a lot when studying JavaScript, the Mozilla documentation for JavaScript. So let me just start Mozilla JavaScript right here, and then you see the MDN documentation. I think MDN stands for Mozilla Developer Network. So you see the MDN documentation for JavaScript, and you can see topics right here. Find see the step-by-step guides. Very important. Don't learn introduction to JavaScript and then the next day you're learning functions. You're going to struggle. That's why you saw me trying to avoid mentioning some terms, because you need to learn something because these things build on top of each other. So to understand functions, you have to understand variables. You have to understand JavaScript operators. You have to understand syntax and data types. You have to understand how to write and run JavaScript code. So all these things build on top of each other. So don't skip. Use a good roadmap, and then step by step you're learning. You can use YouTube videos for that. When it comes to JavaScript syntax and data types, you can have this learning plan, and then you can start learning. New Dev also has resources on this. JavaScript resources on this. So you go over to New Dev, and there's also the step-by-step guide on New Dev for that. But aside that, there's YouTube. You can find courses on Coursera, edX, EDX, excuse me. Free Code Camp also has good JavaScript courses or JavaScript learning path for that. So you can come to my book, use that as your learning path, and you know that after operators, I need to learn functions, and then you go and search for functions on you. So either go to the developer MDN docs right here, and then search for functions. Right, if you search for functions, you can use that to learn functions, you practice it, or you can come to Google, search for functions, JavaScript right here, and read several articles or watch several videos on it. You learn that this is if you're not getting a book or a course, and you want to just learn this by going through using a roadmap and learning one by one. So you can do things like this, but make sure you don't skip the fundamentals. And if there's anything you don't understand, um don't conclude that I don't understand this thing, or it's not for me. It's probably maybe the resource you're using is not the best for you. It might be good for 10,000 people, and that's fine, but different people have different learning styles. So even if you see that 10,000 people, 100,000 people are getting it, and maybe you're just that person that's not getting it, that's fine. You go to the internet, go to YouTube, go to other course platforms, and look for another resource on that particular topic and try to learn. You're going to find the one that's right for you. So don't be quick to blaming yourself and thinking that, oh, there's something wrong with you, that you're the problem. Try different resources. You have the internet there. My book is there to simplify everything, but you also have the internet there if you're not using my book. Find other resources, try to learn that particular thing. Try different resources if one is not working for you. But make sure you follow a roadmap. All these things are really important. That after learning basic JavaScript operators, like, yeah, we talked about, like, you saw how we did addition. You can do multiplication, minus, arithmetic operators, and all of that. You saw something little on concatenation. There are the assignment operators when you're creating variables and all of that stuff. So you learn that along the way, and then you learn functions. Functions are really important. You learn about arrays, higher order functions, JavaScript objects, conditional statements, loops, the document object model, which we use for interacting with the browser DOM, like your HTML page and all of that. How do you use JavaScript to manipulate the DOM? That's the document object model. How you use JavaScript to manipulate your HTML page. That's when you're learning the DOM, you see that. How to include JavaScript in an HTML file, browser events, browser storage, and then you can build projects. That's why you could get a project in my book. So make sure that you build projects while learning. You go to YouTube, I have free videos on building HTML, CSS, JavaScript projects. There are videos from Brad Traversy, people like Code Stacker, there's Coda, and all of that. So make sure you build projects. Apart from watching tutorials, though, make sure you build your own projects. All these things are very important. You learn stuff like asynchronous JavaScript, working with data and time, and all of that. So these things are really important. Browser storage enables us to store stuff in the browser. Like if you go to a site and you log in, your details are stored somewhere in the browser. So that's browser storage. I'm sure if I come to inspect right now, I come to local storage here. So if inspect, go to application, and then local storage. Let me zoom out a bit. You're going to see that Limpub is storing some things in the browser. So browser storage is storing information, whatever this is right now. But it's storing some stuff in the browser. So that's an example of the browser storage, where you can store stuff in the browser so that when you reload the page, you can just get it from the browser instead of trying to go to the server to get that data again. That's why you need browser storage. You can store custom user data sometimes in the browser storage. There's also like IndexedDB and all of that stuff. So I thought all of this stuff either in my book or in my YouTube videos. You can find it on the internet and all of that. So that's it. That's it for the introduction to JavaScript. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Oh, yeah, I can see the suggestions right now of Replit. Yeah, Replit is there. Replit.it. I think they've changed to replit.com now. And then there's CodePen. But that's it for for introduction to JavaScript. And I hope we had a good time learning. And if you have any questions, I'm open to answering them.
Hi guys, do you have any questions for Ebenezer? Questions, comments? Suggestions? Okay. Maybe that's still on its way, or the class was clearly understood. Thank you so much, Ebenezer, for today's section. It was really, really apt and straight to it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me. No, nobody has any question. You just understood everything about JavaScript already. Everyone, everyone. Go on, if you have any question, ask. Don't bone it. You might not have like it's not always easy to get people that you can ask questions to directly. So if you have any question or need any clarification or pointers or guides, or anything at all, you can ask, and I'll be happy to answer them.
Hi guys, the floor is open. Victoria, Lanre, Ibinabo, and Nneka, Sidiat, and others. Do we have any questions for Ebenezer? Or should he ask us questions instead? Ebenezer, there's a message in the chat for you. Share the link to
Oh
your book.
yeah, so let me share the. Thank you very much, Nsikak. Saidat, Adetutu, Susan, Victor, Oluwadamilola. So yeah, let me share the link to my book, SVIPRL. That's um, uh, yeah. This is it to get the PDF right here. This is to get the PDF on Seller. Um, what? Yeah, and then to get the physical copy. So anywhere you are in Nigeria, if you place an order for the physical copy, it will be delivered to your house. So wherever you are in Nigeria, you can place an order for the physical copy, and you get it. So this is the link to the physical copy right here, VIP paperback, and that's for PDF, the physical copy, and then you can connect with me right here newdev.io/Ebenezer. So right here you see my profile, my new dev profile, which contains all my social links, my email address, my WhatsApp number. You can start to connect with me. Yeah, and that's it.
Okay. And do we have anything else to share? Does anyone have anything else to share? Or we're calling tonight a quit? Somebody's just joining class. Interesting. Okay. So once again, thank you guys. Thank you everyone for joining the class today. Thank you so much, Ebenezer. Thank you to everyone that took out the time to be here today. I think this is a wrap for today's section. The recording is going to be available on YouTube shortly. So good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.